What follows is a story never before told. I lived it, or I should say, I survived it, but I have never shared the telling of it until now. Oh, to be 17 again. The world by the tail on a downhill pole. Perfect knowledge of everything, everything of worth, free room and board. And all I had to do to gain all of this was go to school a few hours a day. Oh, I worked. I always had jobs. The entire second half of my senior year, I worked in a grocery store, 7 days a week. I believe I had 2 days off between January and June. But my money was mine. I bought my own clothes. I paid for my own car. I bought tires when they were needed. And isn't it amazing that I learned even that early that those people who buy their own tires aren't the ones squealing them in front of the school when it's time to leave. I even had a semi-steady girlfriend by that time. We'd been going out for 9 or 10 months. Oh, she dated other guys and I dated other girls. But we always came back together. And then, all at once, she stopped dating her other fellows. She just wanted to date me. She never asked me to not date the other girls I was dating, but I kind of dropped away from that. Then it happened. One night at my house, I had to stop for something that I'd forgotten. My parents and brother were away on a trip, and there were just the two of us there. And believe it or not, she seduced me. Now, she'd have had to seduce me because I would have never have taken that step on my own. I had way too much respect to cross that line of morality or propriety. But she did. And I did cross that line. Although it was by fits and starts and hips and hops, it happened. Not as smoothly, nor nearly as urbanely as I might have wished, but it was certainly worth the effort. When she came to me at her own house, while her mother and her aunt were elsewhere, that was shocking. As dangerous as that may sound, one must remember that the staying power of a neophyte 17-year-old boy, 1, 2, 3, thank you, isn't much. Graduation was on the 14th of June, 1961. And I stepped out of my boyhood and ran face to face with reality. College, my counselor said, is not for you. Yes, you have the grades to get into any college in the state. In fact, your grades are quite good. But our studies show that people from your socioeconomic level do not finish college. So I did not spend time or effort in locating scholarships that would only be wasted. To say I was devastated would have been understatement in its purest form. With this door now closed to me, I turned to the help wanted ad in the newspaper. Of course, that was little help. For those of you who remember, the summer of 1961 was very shortly after the seating of a new administration. We were in the midst of a terrible recession nationwide. And you can imagine the amount of jobs there were available for a totally unskilled high school graduate. Yeah, that's about how many there were. I couldn't get a job washing dishes. Oh, I had skills. If you count shoveling cow manure out of a corral, or turkey manure out of the turkey houses. Oh, I was good at that. I spent years doing that. I could even drive a tractor. Lift hay bales, man, I could sling them 7 high on a truck and keep right on moving. Anything else? No, not so much. Not so much. I finally got a job on a dairy on the Mendocino coast. I got up there, found out it was not at all what they had told me it was. I was expected to go out at 3 a.m. by myself and bring the cattle in. Well, I figured I'd be bringing the cattle in. But can you imagine what 3 a.m. right on the ocean is? The fog is so thick you could cut it with a knife. The wind is blowing, and it's icicle city. They didn't even have a dog to help. So here I am, stumbling around in the middle of the night out there, trying to learn the fences and the gate and bring the stock in to milk at 4. I did it. Then we milked. Went to breakfast. Oh, I couldn't wait for breakfast. And she served it. 1 egg, 1 piece of bacon, 1 piece of toast. I inhaled that and said, "More, please? Lunch is at noon. We'll see you then." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to catch a nap." "No, we want you to clean out the corral, hose it down, and make sure all of the milking gear is cleaned, sterilized, and put away." So I did. Got done with that, and time for lunch, an equal pittance. And by this time I was hungry. Dinner is at 6. So I went out thinking I'd go back to my little hut and nap. But no. They had other jobs for me up until it was 3 p.m. and time to go back and bring the cows in for the afternoon milking. I stayed the night, milked in the morning, got back to my room, loaded my stuff in my little backpack, walked out to the road, stuck out my thumb, and hitchhiked back home. 250 miles, but I did it. I was putting up with no more of that. I got home, no jobs, no prospects. I finally got a day work loading 110-pound oat hay bales on the truck, walk along beside the truck, grab it with hay hooks, throw it up on the truck bed. Do that for a while and see how your body feels. In the middle of July, you're now, a whole month after graduation. Remember having the world by the tail? I felt more like it had me by this time. My girlfriend came to me and said, "I've missed my period." I looked at her, not quite sure what that meant. And she said, "I think I'm pregnant." Well, the most common form of marriage proposal in the world is simply, "You're what?" I guess that counted here too. But even then, we couldn't do things the easy way. We made this plan. We put it together. She had a very good job at a local resort there, serving tables. I was to meet her after breakfast. She would go in, work her breakfast shift, get off, and we would leave. We would head to Reno and be married there. By this time, I had passed my 18th birthday, but she had just passed her 17th birthday. So when we got to Reno, it was no problem with me, but she wasn't of age, and they wouldn't give us a license. So, did we do the smart thing then and call our family, throw ourselves on the mercy of the court, and go home? No, we came up with another plan, equally brilliant. We could get married in Mexico. Then we'd come back and have to be redone in the States. But you have a specific time to do that. So what did we do? We hopped in my 1952 Studebaker Commander and pointed south. All the way to Los Angeles, then to San Diego, and even further to the border, where they stopped us. "You aren't 18, ma'am. You can't enter Mexico without parental permission." So they turned us back. Now, being the bright kids we were, and knowing everything there was to know, we turned around, came home, right? Wrong. We turned around, drove back to San Diego, got a hotel room, spent the night, and guess whose period started the following morning? Yes. We stayed. I got a job, and it was not a bad job. I was working with a janitorial crew, and we were actually doing janitorial work in the offices at the San Diego Zoo. Got to tour the zoo at night after everybody was gone, just the watchman. He'd take us around, and it was so cool. See it from the backside, so to speak. But did that for several weeks. And my sister and brother-in-law lived there in town, and they finally found us. Turned out that the Border Patrol had contacted our parents and told them that we had been turned back at the border. Well, it got a little feud. They thought that we had been passed at the border, and they were just notifying us. So Wayne, my brother-in-law, went into Mexico to try to find us. Couldn't. Came back. And eventually they did find us in town there. And I don't know exactly how that worked, but they did. Convinced us we should call home, and we were convinced we should go home and get married. So we did. And we were welcome home. I guess we'd done enough stupid stuff already, right? We were married. Still no work. Now what do? Do we stay in the Sonoma area in Northern California, or do we go back to San Diego? I had a job there, and we had a little house that we'd rented. Didn't have much furniture in it, but we had a house right above the airport, San Diego International. Prior to our escapade, I had visited the Navy recruiter and had talked to them about options. And while I was there, after we had returned, I got a call from these recruiters. Had I thought any more about it? And I talked to my then bride and said, what do you think about this? She says, it's steady work. I said, that it is. So I said, let's go ahead and take the test, do their test, what they wanted me for, was to come in and take their tests and see what I qualified for. Well, I went in and I took their tests, and they were ecstatic. They said, we've never seen scores like this on these tests. They offered me anything that I was physically able to do that the Navy had available. Of course, I wanted something like an electronics field. So I was offered missile technician, and that sounded right up my alley. My brother-in-law was a submariner, and while in San Diego on a visit a few years prior, I had visited his submarine with him and had lunch there and was totally taken in by it. I was quite impressed. And I said, I can get into that. So when I got done, went back and talked to my bride. We decided that's where we were going. That's what we'd do. So I enlisted. This was the 21st of August, and I'm off to boot camp, leaving a wife who was pregnant this time with her mother, and I'm gone. She decided not to stay there with her mother, but went back and took up our little house and waited for me while I was in boot camp those several weeks. I was done with that by the end of October, and back north we came. Last time out of San Diego ever. Drove back home. Not sure what we're going to do, because I had orders to Virginia Beach, Virginia, Guided Missile School, Dam Neck, Virginia. How am I going to get a wife who is pregnant across 3,000 miles with no money? Well, here again, her mother stepped in and her aunt, and between the two of them, they had a family fundraiser, and they raised enough money that we could ride a train from San Francisco all the way to Norfolk, Virginia. At New Orleans, or as they said, Nolans, Louisiana, I realized we were going to be a day late. I started out a day planning to get there a day early. Due to the fact it was right around Thanksgiving, every college in the South was out, and every student in every college was on that train, or waiting for it, or getting off it. So it was going stop to stop to stop. It was a whistle-stop train, and it cost us time. So I went into the Shore Patrol office in the train station in Nolans and told them what my dilemma was. They gave me a provisional pass so I wouldn't be bothered on the trip, and told me to report in as soon as I could. And I did. I got into Norfolk. I put my wife in a hotel, and I called the base. They sent a cab for me, and I was checked in. They weren't pleased I was a day late, but nothing really bad ever came of that, because I had at least tried to make amends on it. I think they slapped my fingers. But here I am on a base at Virginia Beach, and she's in a hotel in Norfolk, 15, 20 miles away, and me with no money and no place to bring her. Somebody says, talk to the chaplain. The chaplain said, get a hold of Navy Relief. That's what they do. So I got a hold of Navy Relief. Navy Relief gave me some money, said, here, go pay the hotel bill, get yourself an apartment, and get some food, get her there, and get back on base. I did. I went back to their office. I said, now, can we arrange a payment schedule here for this? They said, you're a seaman apprentice. You don't make enough money having to pay for an apartment and food to repay anything. It's a grant. So here I was, 3,000 miles from what had been home, in the Navy, with a pregnant wife, living in my own little apartment with the world ahead of me. And the only way I know I got through that ordeal was to have a little bitty angel sitting right there on my shoulder the whole way. because I certainly never did anything there to warrant the good outcome. Thank you.